about a third down the page, with a line that begins with the word kasha misgala. So we are in this discussion in trying to identify the inyan that is inherent in the creation. What is what's called the tam, the kavon in the creation? So he brought down from the Yitzchayim, brought down from the Zohar, and earlier, and right now we're discussing this which brought down from the Yitzchayim, where the Yitzchayim says that this is so that the koiches, all inherent koiches that are contained in the Elokus will be nizgal. So right now we're discussing this phase of it. And the question is, why was it necessary that this koiches should be nizgal? Which would be the reason for the creation. Now what he's saying, true that creation has accomplished this fact, but what was it necessary for? What is it hinge on? What is the question? The question is, before it was nizgala, was it missing anything or was it not missing anything? And this is called in Chassidus, in Chokrim, it's called koyach choser peil or koyach einay choser peil, meaning something that is bekoyach. Is it still not complete until it has a peil? Or say koyach einay choser peil means that koyach is complete without the peil. So we started discussing this here. And it says, we're discussing the way the inyan is lamato. That benivroim, benivroim we have the cloud that koyach is choser peil. And the way the Rebbe puts it, that koyach is einoi dovor klal. Is not a real thing. And surely he says that it's not anything that exists b'poy. So this is what we were in the middle of discussing when we finished on last Thursday. That koyach is einei dover klal. Punkt in today's chitas, in the more recent chitas, where the Alter Rebbe speaks about Ahava, and he describes the various qualities of Ahava that are inherent in the neshama. It's called Ahava Mesoteres. And he describes these are very high and profound, very powerful in the name of Ahava. And then he says, however, they are behela. And they are really called Ahavot Tivis. Ahavot Tivis. And Ahavot Tivis is not what we are after. Ahavot Tivis means essentially, this is Alter Rebbe calls it, that you're acting in Ahavot Olokus, but Ahavot Olokus not acting using your seichel, which is the primary human faculty. This was defines the human being, but it's using your teva. But teva, the neshama has this ahava. This is what Alter Rebbe says. So clearly, we're not comparing ahava mesoteres to an animal ahava. But what is the point in this ahava mesoteres? What is the point in this ahava tivis? In one place, the Alter Rebbe expresses it and says that Ahavot Tivis is Eino Avedosoi Klal. meaning it's not his avodah, which means he didn't create it. He didn't do anything to create it, to reveal it, to accomplish it, to reach into it. It's inherent in his makeup. And here is where we have to understand when we speak about nivroim. It says, "B'nivroim, dover shubikeach ein dover klal." Anything that is bekoyach in a nivra, that is inherently bekoyach, is actually not the nivra. It is the boirei. It doesn't belong to him. It's not his. So, in terms of him being a nivra, of being his, it's nothing. It's not an entity. As the Alter Rebbe explains over there, that even the Ava Mesuteres, if only one reflects on it, and he has, and he's misboine, and he brings it out, begilui, that's already an account, and that's already his. Even if he's only revealing the Ava Mesuteres, the existent Ava. But if he doesn't, it's just there, b'teva, ein avidas klal. Then it is not a non-entity from the perspective of the Nivra himself. So here we see an inyan, that there is bekoyach a tremendous inyan. But from the perspective of the individual, it's a non-entity. When does it begin to be an entity, a real thing? When it becomes conscious, when it comes into his conscience, when he becomes aware of it. As a matter of fact, in halacha, if a person does something inadvertently, he's unaware that he did it. Let's say a person is reading in the Torah Pashas from Krishna, because he's trying to practice Krishna, not because he has the intent to be Yetzer Krishna, but he's learning Krishna. He's not Yetzer the mitzvah of Krishna, because he's not really doing it. Even though, in fact, he's reading every word. So, bikoyach, when a person reads the words, so inherent in that practice is the Krishna. But there isn't that special input from him that I am reading Krishna. And if it's not he reading Krishna, he's just reading what it says, but not that he is involved in reading Krishna, he's not Yetzer Mitzvah. This is the pshat, that by Nifroim, is a koyach, is not an entity, it's nothing. What's making this nothing? It's not, it's not part of a nivra, it's part of the Beira. Is it considered anything for the nivra, the fact that the Hashem is the one who created the world? Is that considered an accomplishment of the nivra? It's not an accomplishment. Which means that even though he has it, the koyach, but really it really doesn't exist. In terms of it being him, it doesn't exist. And therefore, when we say that a person has something bekoyach, we say that this bekoyach has to be brought into koil, then it becomes a real thing. Therefore, every bekoyach demands that you should then further act on it. Like when you say a person has a certain talent, you say, you have this talent, you're obligated to develop it and to do something with it. Because if you don't, it's a waste. It's not, nothing happens. Sorry. So this line, it says, Ki im davke kasher mizgala upeil dover, upeyula gashmi is ozhu apeil. When is it really there in the nivro, in the world of the nivro, when it does something? Avol lemailo, but lemailo in the lakus, it's a totally different picture. Why? Immediately, when all when there was the rotzen to create, all the worlds were already created then, miyad. At what level? At the level of rotzen. But they were already created at the level of Rotzen. The Rotzen to create is not an inherent thing in the Elokus. It's not a must be. So when there was a rotzen to create, that was a creation in itself. True, it wasn't a creation after the tzimtzum in a poil mama, so to speak, in the world, but in terms of the rotzen, nothing was missing. Dinya was there complete.
Because it wasn't there before, isn't it? That's why mere fact by having it is already creation.
Right, because it wasn't there before, but we have to go a step further and understand that this Rotzein is not missing anything, so that we should say, oh, it has to go further, a step further. It doesn't need to go a step further.
So why are you saying it doesn't have to?
What?
Why it doesn't have to go a step further to be whatever?
Because at this level of Rotzein, it's complete.
You say that Hashem's will isn't a koyach, it's a pula?
Right.
Can you build up on that?
I'll explain to you. Just step by step. Just to, we should have an approach to this union. We say that Lamato has to be a poyo mamash bepoyo. But we also know that Lamato, in the Niva, there are also many madreges. There is the Seichel as it's conceptualized just in the Seichel, the Koyach Seichel. Then, when the Seichel is being formulated in Machshov, and in Machshova itself there are madreges. There is Machshova Sheba Machshova, there is Diba Sheba Machshova, there is Maisa Sheba Machshova. Ma'aseh shebamachshava is that part of machshava that ultimately can be brought into dibur, into words. You can speak it out. Because this is where you have concrete words that you can express. You can now put it into in your mouth. You can actually speak it. So let's examine this a little bit. Machshava shebamachshava, dibur shebamachshava, and ma'aseh shebamachshava. And then after that there is dibur. What is machshava shebamachshava? That is the level of thought where the means by which you think, the words and the formulas by which you are thinking the seichel are not clearly demarcated, not clearly defined, because essentially you are involved in the essence of the seichel, in the thought, in the concept, rather than in the form that it's presented, that it presents itself. That's what machshava shebamachshava. It's almost true to say that in machshava shebamachshava there are no words, although in every thought there is words, but you're totally unconscious of the words. Sometimes you think of an inyan and you don't even know which language you're thinking in, because the words are totally immaterial. You're thinking just the inyan. Then there is dibur shebamachshava, where the thought is already formulated in words. Then there is ma'aseh shebamachshava, where not only the thought is formulated in words, but the words become the primary entity. I have formulated in such a way that I can now just go and just express what I think. Right? So, when one has the thought, the idea, the thought means the idea, in the level of machshava shebamachshava, he recognizes he doesn't really grasp it yet. He has the thought, but he can't. If he would not continue to develop it, he doesn't have the oisius. He can't write it down. He can't put it in his pocket because he hasn't yet clearly defined it. Therefore, there it is true to say that if you have it in that level in machshava, you haven't really created that thought. You don't really know it yet. You didn't create it. And it demands that you should continue on to develop it further. This thought itself, that level of awareness itself, demands that you should continue further. But once you have it in dibur shebamachshava, when you fully comprehend it and you have formulated it well, then that itself doesn't demand you should go further. You have full comprehension of it. The only reason you would want to go further is if you have a Talmud and you have to transmit it to someone else. But without the need to transmission, I'm pretty satisfied. I understand it. And it's a real thought. Even though I never spoke it and never expressed it in words. I didn't really create it outside. But it's a real thing. It exists. I feel perfectly comfortable with it. So what do we see here? You understand this? Mm-hmm. So what do we see here? That there is... the truth is that in a human being, if you have to understand, this is only a moshel. Because in a human being is not... Well, how do we call a person? A medaber, not a choishev. Because ultimately, when is the shleimus ha'odom is when he speaks, and speaks with his mouth, not in his thought. In other words, mitzad ha'odom, he is still missing the completion until he actually speaks it out. But just as a moshel to illustrate that there is such a thing as something existing complete, that it in itself does not demand further development. In a human being, it demands because inside the human being, he has to come to his shleimus. But the etzem inyan, the thing itself doesn't demand any further development. It's complete in itself. It was created at this level. It was created at machshava level. So similarly, when we say that all the birtzoinu lahavis miyad nizhava kol ha'olamos. In that rotzim were created all the worlds. Nothing is missing. Nothing is demanding that it should continue on. In a human being, as we said, the machshava is not complete. He is called the medaber. When is he considered that he actually created only when he speaks it out? But l'mayla, this is complete. The inyan is there. Nizhava kol ha'olamos. And therefore, what's compelling this rotzen to come out b'peh? That this koach should be revealed and should be expressed. You understand?
Could you put as a contrast to what you explained before about the nivra? That by nivra the koach has to go to poil. Otherwise, it's not the koach of a nivra; it's koach of the boiler. There is no point. But by the boiler himself, the milo, there is no need for that.
Right.
Because there is no second party there, or something like that. Can you?
Right. Okay. I can draw this a little
Because
further.
that was a good thing.
Yeah, I can draw it a little further. In fact, but I have to deviate, okay, because the human being is called and this is discussed very broadly. Why is a human being called a medaber? Why is he not called a seichli? What is the greatest koyach in the person? The seichel, koyach ha-seichel. Why is he called a medaber? So for this, I have to bring in something that we've discussed many times in various different contexts. We speak about a seichel. I explained to you the seichel bahami and seichel nushi. And what is the difference? That seichel bahami is not a seichel in itself. It's a seichel that pertains to explaining some phenomenon. Seichel anushi is the seichel. The seichel itself is a real thing. At the Yenushi level. This is the seichel itself is what guides him. Not that the seichel is subservient to a mitzias. That's means seichel. This seichel, let me say, this is imperative. This is the human koyach. This is what distinguishes the human being from the animal. When is this seichel become complete? What is in fact the difference between, follow this, a human being, you know how to get from here to here. And lahavl, the animal, also knows how to get from here to here. And what is the difference between your knowing this, the root, and the animal knowing the root? You know what the difference is? The difference is that to you, this is the knowledge itself is an entity. And the proof is in the fact that you can describe it, you can speak it, you can say it. So therefore, your knowledge is a complete knowledge of the inyan. Lahavra, the animal, or a person who does not know the inyan so clearly, he only knows it by osmosis, he doesn't really know it. He feels his way. When is knowledge complete? When you can speak it. Then you have the inyan. So this illustrates the inyan that the human being is called a madaber, because this is where you see clearly the power of his seichel, that his seichel is independent of the circumstance of the mitzias. He knows the inyan independently. He is really a sichli. When is the inyan that he is a sichli expressed fully? When he is medaber. Then you see that he has the seichel as a separate entity. So, this machshava that we spoke about, by a nivro, this machshava is not complete, really, until he actually speaks it. Then it becomes a complete entity. Before that, it's not a real thing. If you want to express it in those terms that we spoke of before. He hasn't really created anything. It's not a real thing. He may know it, like we said before, oh, but this is Pshat Koyach Eliki. It's also true. He knows it in Pshat Koyach Eliki. Even though there was his input in it, but he was still only discerning. You know what discerning means? He was still only identifying that which he was conscious, which he was aware of. When is it a real entity that he has created a seichel? When he speaks it. So this is a human being. But using this machshava as an illustration, as a moshel, where for Lamailo, it's appropriate, it helps us to understand what does it mean that there is such a thing as koyach einay chosed poel. Because the Rotzen Lamailo is a real creation. A full-fledged creation. The Rotzen itself.
Can you say that further?
1 second. Did you follow what I'm saying? In the seichel that goes on in the person's mind, even in the machshava, in the lowest level of machshava, he is still relating to a seichel as it exists. It exists someplace.
Right.
It's not his seichel. It's not a real mitzias.
Right.
When does it become his seichel, the real mitzias? When he's medaber.
Right.
Lamaila, it's a real mitzias. The Rotzen is a real mitzias.
But it didn't come from nowhere else.
That's right. Not only
Right.
didn't come from nowhere else, but he created it here.
Right.
All of
Right.
it's on it. Now he won't create.
Right. It's a separate entity over there already. Like,
Yeah, it's a real
Right.
mitzias. And his havel kol ha'ilams. Everything was created already. At what level? At the Rotzen level, but that's a full creation.
Yeah.
Nothing is missing.
Like that, yeah. Right.
This is the koyach she'enu.
Eine chosed poel. The Chayach does not compel to go any further in order to complete it and make it whole and make it real. It's real in itself.
So there's nothing that compels this at this point, if it's complete as it is, and there's nothing compelling it to go forward,
So how can this be the reason for the creation? It's going back to the Indian, as we're going to finish this off. Okmei shekosav hapardes. We have the place. Okmei shekosav hapardes shara tzachzoche is peregim. Bezel shoyne. So the Paris explains, says this here. Kiloi machshvoisov machshvoiseinu. His thoughts, means Hashem's thoughts, are not to be compared to our thoughts. This is actually based on, and the words are based on the posik, machshvoisov machshvoiseinu. And he explains. Ki, because kasher yid mehoodam b'sichli lahavos, that when a person purports or imagines in his seichel to create something, to make something come to being, harei machshavtoi lo tafil. His machshava will not bring into effect, will not make it happen. In order to make it happen, he has to go from machshava into dibur and into maisa and actually relate it to outside. V'nimtzo. Therefore, it comes out. This is the one when the Pardes explains. Hapoyel sholem mehakoyach. The poyel is more complete than the koyach. Why is it more complete? Ki hakoyach choser hametzius. Ki hakoyach choser hametzius. The koyach is missing. What does it mean? It's missing an existence, a presence. It's not, doesn't really exist. Choser hametzius. It's not really in existence. Ve'ein loy metzius ushleimus klal. Which means that it doesn't have a real presence, and it's not a standalone entity at all. It's there only because. V'hapoyel hu hoyiker v'hamitzius. And what is the central thing? What is like at the core of an entity by Nivroim? Is the poyel. Because this is what makes it be. It really exists as a mitzias. V'zulosoi, and without the poyel, zulosoi means without the poyel, ein dover. There is nothing. V'zulosoi ein dover. This we already discussed, we explained. No matter how well you understand it, it's not a real seichel because you're still dependent on describing, on relating to something else, not the seichel, the seichel itself. When does the seichel becomes a seichel? When it becomes Ve'ein kein piu loiso ve'haviyose shemelach malchei amlochem HaKodesh Baruch Hu. This is still from the Parnas. But the actions and the bringing into being of that which Melech, which Hashem does, is totally different. Ki kasher olo birtzoinoi lahavois ulaha'atzil. Because as soon as there was at that moment, or on this plane, that olo birtzoinoi lahavois ulaha'atzil, that there was a rotzing to create, Oz netzal v'nitztayer ad kal l'shem. He was already netzal means he was already separated, and it was already nitztayer was already formed. This is what the Pasuk says.
This is talking about the being nitztayer still it is by the Ratzin, or it's saying that in a tangible way. Oh, in the Ratzin.
In the Ratzin.
All right.
Nitztayer in the Ratzin. V'hainu, what is this referred to? What was actually created? This is what's referred to as called Eser Sfiris Hagnuzos B'Ma'atzilon. The Eser Sfiris, the creation in general, is the Eser Sfiris. And there are Eser Sfiris Hagnuzos B'Ma'atzilon. There are Gnuzos, Gonus means contained and concealed, B'Ma'atzilon within the Creator Himself. Shenizhavu alidei aliyas horotzin, that were created just by the mere aliyas horotzin. And he wanted the creation. V'yadua u'mevur b'mokim acher. It's also known and explained elsewhere, Shezehu, that this Eses Firis Hagnusis B'Matzil on this level is Be'oir Ein Soif Shelifnei HaTzimtzum. That this was actually before the Tzimtzum. Oir Ein Soif Lifnei HaTzimtzum. The Rotzin The Tzimtzum came as a result of the Rotzen in order to bring the Rotzen into toil. But the Rotzen itself was in the Sof Shelifnei HaTzimtzum. V'hu Masha Kosov, B'plikei Rebbe Lozer, Rebbe Eliezer. This is what it says, Ad Sheloi Nivra Ha'ilom, that even before the world was created, Ha'yahu Ushmoi Bilvat. Was him, Hashem, Ushmoi, and his name. What means his name? What is the name? Where does the name come in? If there was nothing there, this is the spheres. And he's referring to over here after the Aliyah Zorotzen, and before the creation, there is who Ushmoi. The Bechino Zu Hoyo Aliyah Zorotzen. At this level, this is where Aliyah Zorotzen took place.
After it was Shmoi Bilvat, it was Aliyah Zorotzen, or it's Aliyah Zorotzen, which is Shmoi.
After Aliyah Zorotzen it's called Shmoi, and before Aliyah Zorotzen it's called Shmoi. From the way the Shmoi is Shem or Etzem, the way it is an Etzem, and the way when it came into expression Aliyah Zorotzen. Aliyah Zorotzen was already an expression of Shmoi.
The union of Shmoi is Aliyah Zorotzen.
Before the Tzimtzum. Before the Tzimtzum. Hoyahu Shmoi Bilvat, even though it was Aliyah Zorotzen, it's still called Shmoi Bilvat. It's still the same meaning.
So this Shmoi Bilvat is came before Aliyah Zorotzen also?
Right, it's also...
So what is Shmoi then?
A higher level, that's it. Bebchina zu hu Aliyah Zorotzen. It actually is going to go a little further also. Kmei shekosav hashalom yun shom davdalt. O bechina zu, this bechina, this Indian, he atzilus diklolos. This is what's called atzilus diklolos. Atzilus diklolos means atzilus of a much more general description of existence. In the creation, we say there's Bri, Atzir, Bri, Asir, Asir, Yitzira, Bri, and Atzilus. These are the four worlds. But this is the four worlds already after the Tzimtzum and after the whole Seder Ishtalshelus as before, in Kesser and so forth. Bichlolus, right before the Tzimtzum, is called Atzilus. What this is telling us is that even though we always refer to the Tzimtzum as the very first union of creation, the Tzimtzum, and before that there is nothing, there is only a Eibishter. There are madrigas before that, many madrigas before that. And they are just as in Atzilus, that we say Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah, we say Atzilus, is that the highest thing? There is Keser above it. And then there is Ak, and there is Akudim, Berudim, there are very madrigas between Keser and Ak. So too, Bechlolus, there is also the same inyan, but they are on a much higher level. So, and just as Atzilus that we are referring to Atzilus. Atzilus, next door Atzilus. So there we say that what is the difference between Atzilus and Bria? That there's a categorical difference. Bria, Yitzir Asiyah, this is Machshav Dibur U'Mais. Atzilus is higher than Machshav. This is the Esas Spheres. This is the Etzem HaKoiches. Which means that this is where the spheres are meuchad with the matzah, with the oil. So too, when you talk about Atzilus Diklolus, so this inyan that Atzilus Diklolus is before the Tzimtzum, and the Esas Spheres are called Gnuzes B'Ma'atzilam. They're really part of the Ma'atzil himself.
Well, when it says what is it? I'm not sure what it's referring to. This aspect of what? How the Ratzain, when it rolls in the Ratzain, this is already the creation of the Esher Spheres. Is Atzilus the close?
Right.
Right.
This is not known as Atzilus. The Gam lefi Masha Kosel HaPardis. I'm sorry, did I skip?
Yeah, the
V'hainu Masha Ola B'Tzina Lahatzil. Where is Atzilus destroyed? Masha Ola B'Tzina Lahatzil. The Aliyah Zorot Lahatzil. U'memeile Netzlu B'Mchinas Esesphiris. And automatically, Memela, when it was Ola B'Tzina, there was all Esesphiris. But these are Esesphiris which are not yet created separately, but they are included in the Rotz. I want to stop here for a second and relate the union of Esas Spheres to all the B'Tzina Lahatzil. It seems to be clearly correlated. I'll say all the B'Tzina Lahatzil and what happened in Netzla Esas Spheres.
Which is all Lifnei Atzimtzum.
All Lifnei Atzimtzum. Why is it called Esas Spheres? I mean, why all of a sudden Esas Spheres? Why is the creation referred to as Esas Spheres?
As opposed to something more general.
Yeah. Esas Spheres, he created and then he decided to make Esas Spheres. They say no. But this is a synonym. If you say it was a creation, that means Esas Spheres. We can ask a more general question. Since that after the creation and after the Tzimtzum and after the creation of Atzilus Bri Yitzir Asiyah, after that we are here and walking on this earth, it's all the Rebishter. Hashem Echad. So, why is it called Bria? It's the Rebishter. It's Hashem. Where do we distinguish between the Creator and the created? The created, do they have any force of their own? They don't have any source of their own. It all comes from the Creator. So where is the demarcation line? Why do you call this Creator and this created?
It's His will.
Huh?
It's His will. He wanted us to be creation, so that's why we're there.
After all is said and done, we remain bottled and remain one thing with Him. In what way is this a creation and this a creator? This is not a big kasha. It's a union that needs to be related to and understood. What?
The Torah paskins that Hashem created the Mitzios.
Yeah, you're quoting the Marab Maharash.
I've heard that before from Jacobson.
Yeah. But what does it mean? What does it mean he created? And this Emerson really means something else. What distinguishes between the creator and the created? This is a similar question that we have within ourselves. What distinguishes between the Etzem HaNefesh and the Koiches HaNefesh? Like we said before, that the Abba Mesuteres is not his Metzias, but it's his. And then afterwards, when he is Mizboinin, so he creates it, but it's still dependent, it still is drawing from the Abba Mesuteres. So, what is the clear demarcation line between the essence, between the creator and the created? And the important thing to recognize in this vein is that in the creation, everything comes in a certain sequence. Because just like if you want to build a house, to conceptualize the house is one thought. To build a house is brick by brick. Not only is it brick by brick, but you cannot build the roof without having a foundation. Everything has to come in a certain sequence. Why? Because the created does not have an essence of his own. The creator has an essence of its own. So that when you have a concept, you want something, that thing is real to you just because you want it. And you're not thinking in terms of how, you're not thinking of a house. When you want a house, you're not thinking in terms of I'll make a foundation, and I'll make walls, and I'll make ceilings, and I'll make floors, and I'll make. You're thinking of the finished product only, because that's what's real to you. In order to bring this reality into the actuality, into the actual reality, it has to be created, which means you have to bring it into a place where it doesn't exist, and you have to build it from scratch. Building from scratch means it has to be brought, it has to be done in a certain sequence. It's called a Seder. It's called Zman, first, second, and third, past, present, and future. And there is Mokim. Spheres is essentially the Inyan. Why is Spheres? This is the Inyan. How a thought, how an Inyan, a true Inyan, an essential Inyan, can come into Gilui. What Gilui means? Into full expression. Into actuality. How does a person bring a feeling and a thought that he has deep down in his nefesh into actuality? First he conceptualizes it in Chokhmah, and then he develops it in Bina, and then he actualizes it in Das, and then he has to come into Midas, and then he can act on it. When he acts on it, then this original truth now becomes reality. Which means to say that Esesphiris denotes a true presence at the created level rather than at the creator level. So therefore when he says that there was all between the Lahatzil, Hashem had the Ratzon Lahatzil. What's meant Lahatzil? Lahatzil means to emanate outside of himself. If it's a meaning that has to be emanated outside to separate, then it already needs Esesphiris.
I don't think I understood your question. I thought the question was Hashem wants to emanate. So why does this emanation have to be in 10 spheres? That wasn't the question, though.
That was the question.
Oh, so then I don't understand the answer.
The answer is that emanation, by definition, is Esesphiris. Because
even
emanation.
Before there was an emanate, before when Hashem was in a state of no emanation.
Right.
And now Hashem wants to emanate. So automatically, why automatically 10 spheres? Why not one sphere? Why not a concept that's not spheres? I mean, why? It sounds like it existed before, and therefore it necessitates that had to be the way it was expressed.
No. I'll explain to you. Because once you take an emanation, where an emanation means that you don't have the essence, and you have to express the essence. Expressing the essence is in this sequence of 10 spheres. Davka. You are right in the sense that Hashem could have created the world with 11 spheres, 15 spheres, with 5 spheres, no question about it. But inherent in this Rotzin was that it should be through 10 spheres. But the important thing is that if it is one sphere, it's not a creation. A creation is that there is multiplicity. Because only an essence is one.
Because essence relates to essence. But as it relates to outside, it should be...
It has to be more... In other words, if it is a creation, if it is Olam, the Alter Rebbe says clearly, is defined as past, as Mokim and Zman. One doesn't occupy Zman and doesn't occupy Mokim. So therefore, this is what he says, that as soon as there was Aliyah Zorotzin, there was already Esesphiris Netzlu in Matzil. Okay. All right, this will be it for today. Let's shut it off.